welcome back. We've just wrapped up release season for the Reign of Jafar, and there are some really interesting and maybe some meta shifting cards involved in that release. I know I'm personally excited for what the next phase of this game is going to look like, as well as some of the archetypes that may have been underdeveloped, starting to maybe take form in a little more developed way. And that's kind of the purpose of this video, is I really wanted to address some of the archetypes that I personally think are underrepresented or have a lot of potential to really be fun as well as impactful in the game. The first one is the archetype of a reckless or a reckless based deck. This is a deck that I've tried to make work in different iterations, whether it be in green steel reckless, whether it be my cards having reckless or giving other cards reckless. I've tried red green reckless. Red green actually was okay, but the idea of reckless being an archetype that you can build around is yet to really be fleshed out. I know recently we got the crocodile card that comes in exerted, and I believe gives a character on board reckless, and it has a pretty nice stat line, which can be a punish for other exerted or other characters on the other side of the board. But first, I want to just address what is reckless. Reckless is a keyword which basically indicates that a card can no longer quest during their turn, but has to engage in a challenge, whether that be your particular card, something like Maui here to all, or something that gives another character card reckless, such as Lyle Tiberius, or I do believe that new Croc card I was speaking about earlier. So this archetype can be really a fun one to engage in, that prevents another individual from questing their cards and forces them to get in kind of challenges for. And I think this archetype is not as flushed out as it could be. We have really great cards that give cards reckless, but we don't have a lot of cards that you gain benefit from that. And also, there's some ways around it. Obviously, with anything, one time someone's singing, if they sing a song, that is a way to get around reckless if that card has reckless for that turn. But we don't have many cards to support the reckless keyword or archetype as a whole, right? There is, like I mentioned, Lyle Tiberius, who will punish other cards for being banished during their turn, and so your opponent will lose a lore. And I think there's a new, I believe, dog or puppy card that is in a dual link color that draws you a card if it's challenged, but it's not inside of the reckless category. So I think if this archetype can be added onto and given more tools to draw cards when other characters with reckless challenge your characters, whether that be drawing more cards, drawing and discard for filter, also maybe more cards like Lyle Tiberius that allows you to gain some kind of lore advantage, whether it be minusing lore from your opponent or adding lore to yourself. I think those can be really great, adding to this archetype that can really flush out this deck and flush out a reckless style deck that really allows you to engage with your opponent's board and have some control over what they can do with their characters, as well as you getting benefit from them having to challenge into your characters or having them not be able to quest there in that turn. The next archetype that I really feel like has a great potential to be an archetype that could be added moving forward, especially after the rotation. I think after the rotation, there's really great opportunity for bodyguard-based decks. There's not a lot of support for bodyguard-based decks. I know there's a few characters that will buff bodyguards in certain ways and kind of do some minor manipulation of the cards, but there isn't a giant payoff. I think some of the cards that do have a really good payoff are things like Baloo or Bagheera. Baloo being a bodyguard that you gain lower advantage when it is banished, and Bagheera being a card that does board state damage across the board when it is banished. So I really think Bodyguard is another archetype, that if really invested in, maybe an item or maybe other character cards that stack abilities, whether it be strength or willpower, or lower advantage or card draw, any of those aspects of the game to be buffed by the keyword of bodyguard. And again, for those who don't know, bodyguard is a keyword that allows you to enter a character into play exerted and indicates that character has to be banished before you can engage in challenges with other characters on boards. Again, the way around that is obviously singing any kind of damage or removal based songs, or enter the board effects from cards such as like Medusa or Lady Tremaine. Those are some ways around those cards, but I think that archetype is really interesting, and I think that being able to build a bodyguard based deck, one that has stackable abilities, ones that gain you lore for having your cards be in quote unquote bodyguard mode, or ones that allow you to increase lower gain or even maybe decrease lower gain of your opponent's deck, or even like the Bagheera deck, Bagheera card, where it does damage towards other characters on board for its ability of being exerted as a bodyguard for your other characters. I think there's such potential there to really build out a deck that can take that archetype of bodyguard to the next level, and to the level where it can really create a fun, engaging, and meta impacting deck. I think that's one area I'm hoping post rotation that Ravensburger kind of shifts into, is really looking at what cards we have, looking at the archetypes that have been maybe a little less developed, right? Because you have the archetype in kind of Ruby of kind of the strength-based removal, enter the board removal effects. Your steals, you're really leaning into the song packages and things of that nature, and then you have your Amber that is engaged in healing and the benefits of healing your cards, and even that archetype I think can really be beneficial. And then Amethyst really threading the needle between this damage moving kind of damage, shifting damage to other characters, as well as draw based cards. So I think all these archetypes have really been kind of developed in the first kind of run, and now we're in a rotation. I think it's a great opportunity to invest inside of these other archetypes. One that obviously a lot of people are talking about right now is puppies, right? There's puppy cards. I'll put one on screen here in a second. That buff each other, whether it be items that give it more strength or willpower, whether it be other puppy cards that allow you to manipulate aspects of your puppy cards, or even bringing cards that are puppy back from the kind of recursion from the discard. I think that archetype is really going to be fed into post rotation. We already have a reprint of the puppy card that you can have 99 plus inside of your deck. So I think that's one archetype that we're really going to be leaning into. I think also there's going to be some theme based decks that are pretty exciting. One I think just being Blurple with Anna and Elsa. I think they're really leaning into that color pairing being kind of like the Anna and Elsa deck, and really kind of utilizing that color pairing to highlight some synergy inside of those cards. And I think that is really amazing, and I think that is where I see post rotation us leading, is more theme based decks and more archetype based decks, right? And I think that can be a great opportunity for them to really get some great IPs and really kind of focus. The racers also, I can't believe I almost forgot about the racer decks and how the racers are getting so much, right? Benefits right now, and that racer deck is just missing just a few pieces to really make it a pretty reliable and solid deck to play as well as be competitive in. And I think that Ravensburger and is hoping to really highlight these themes and make these IPs flushed out in a really great way. And I hope, the one area that I really wished is a really strong princess based deck. I know there are some items that really help benefit princess based decks, but even that hasn't been fully flushed out. I mean, there's the one item that allows you to draw and gains you a lore if you have a princess in play, but at the end of the day, that deck, right, hasn't been even completely flushed out and made to be competitive in some ways. And I think that hopefully can be some of the future of Lorcana is these themes, right? Not just themes of particular character or IPs, but also themes of archetypes, right? Like the Reckless deck, right? The ability to engage with your opponents on your opponent's turn and prevent them from engaging in things that during their turn, so you benefit on yours. I think that Reckless being able to highlight cards for less favorable trades, make cards that quest, such as that lovely Daisy or Smee, not be able to quest that turn and have to challenge into, especially that Smee. If you really can get that Smee to challenge into some things, and then it's exerted and then it just dies half the time. So I think there are some really good archetypes that are underfed into, Reckless Bodyguard. I think Blue Steel is getting some support inside of the allies, or I believe that's the key word in that. But I think even in some of that, like, there are some really good potential of some really underinvested in decks. I mean, I think it's a great example is how Ruby Amethyst has turned into an evasive deck, right? And before that, evasive characters were kind of quote unquote annoying, but like they really didn't have a strong archetype. And then this set brought that. They got some pieces. They got the ability to kind of bring out Iago and give it some rush with Pan and like Peter Pan and like that really flushed out that archetype. And I'm hoping moving forward, Ravensburger leans into some of these archetypes that haven't got as much support and haven't been fully flushed out like I think they should be, and give those decks their day in the light of the competitive scene per se. So what do you all think? What are some of the archetypes inside of Disney Lorcana that you're excited that it might be getting some support in the Reign of Jafar? What are some archetypes that you hope in the future get more support so that you can build a deck around? For me personally, it's Reckless, or even that Princess deck. It could be pretty fun. But what about you? What are some of the archetypes, some of the keywords, some of the strategies you feel like moving forward, if Ravensburger leans into those, can be really fun and really mix up the competitive scene as well as your local scene?